And when you're in touch with the Korean investors, that's something that you would have mentioned to her?
Probably. More so the Chinese than the Koreans.
So when you get up to paragraph 6 in the affidavit, you say that you approached the applicants, and I'm skipping some of the words, who are the owners of the lands, through their property manager, Oxford, namely Mr. Michael Nobrega, with a rough proposal. You're taking the idea which you have had in mind to put a hotel and condos on this land, and you're taking that directly to Mr. Nobrega.
No, I phoned Mr. Nobrega to find out who I would have to take it to at Omers, or Oxford, sorry.
All right, but you started...
Because I didn't know who to deal with there.
But the one person that you knew there fortuitously was Mr. Nobrega.
Correct.
And you knew him from functions, and I assume that you have to say yes or no for the
Yes,
record.
yes.
And I assume that you met him through your mother at one of these functions.
Oh, for sure.
Right. And you took this idea of developing these lands, and as I say, you started with him, and then he put you under the right person at Oxford?
He put me to the right person at Oxford.
Then at paragraph 7, you say that Omers was sufficiently interested in my rough proposal that I concluded that a deal could likely be struck with the vendors, so I began assembling a development team, including architects, planners, and hotel consultants.
Yes.
That's true.
Basically.
Basically. But it was you who was there first, and then you assembled the team.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Coupry was already there because he had the money.
Well, let's just back up. You had the idea, if I can put it that way.
I had the idea.
Right. And let me just finish this. You began in 2002 to promote the idea. You went to one group, and then in 2004, 2005 to another group.
Correct.
And then you went to the landowner.
No, I went to Mr. Coupry first.
Okay, I wasn't clear about that. So you went to Mr. Coupry. Is it Coupry or Cooper?
Coupry.
All right. So you went to Mr. Coupry, and you wanted to ensure that he would put something substantial into the project?
Correct.
Right. But again, this was in
Without him, I had nothing to go with.
Right. But you were putting the project together.
I was putting it together, but without him, I couldn't do it.
Fair enough. But when you said in the affidavit that you were doing this on behalf of one of your clients, this is paragraph 4, Leo Coupry, in fact, that's 3? That's not 4. In fact, that's not really what I've heard you describe today. I'm not being critical, but what I'm hearing today is that you were the proponent of the proposal. He was going to invest in it.
Well, you have to go back to the Koreans. They were going to finance it. Then and they wanted me to put a team together so that they could finance it. So I needed financing, and I needed someone to negotiate the agreement.
All right, but Mr. Coupry, I gather, was going to be the investor.
Correct.
Right. And otherwise, this was your proposal. He is the investor, correct?
Yes.
And then WCD was incorporated, as I understand it. If we then go back to your evidence from this morning, you then got Mr. Cook involved because he had a lot of experience and he knew how to negotiate with the city. Is that right?
No, with Omers.
All right, but I mean, he knew how to negotiate just generally.
Yes.
Right, and you wanted him to deal with the vendor?
Specifically with Omers.
All right, but again, you were there first and then you got him involved.
Yes.
So let's look at Exhibit 258. So this is written as at October 4th, 2005. Mr. Haggis and Mr. Latimer are emailing. We have been attempting to reach the proposed purchaser development partner today. And then it carries on. If you feel you need to communicate further with Hazel, then you can advise her that we are attempting to contact Mr. Cook. And then it carries on. So the contact with Mr. Cook is in relation to a proposal of which you are part.
I helped create.
You're part of it.
What does part mean?
Well, we'll go back over all of it. You've been trying to get this up and running for a number of years with a number of proposed financial partners.
Yes.
In that sense, you are part of it.
Okay.
You are the proponent, if I can put it that way.
I guess.
Right. And so when your mother is in contact with OMERS about this issue, she's in contact with OMERS about a group of which you form part.
I was the instigator of the group, yes.
Right. Right. And you remained involved in the group at this point.
Yes.
Now, I take it that at that point, Mr. Cook is involved. Mr. Cook is a long-standing family friend.
Yep.
He's a friend not only of you, but he knew your father, and he knew your mother, knows your mother from a long time back.
Yes.
And I take it that the mayor knew that you were involved in some way in this project.
Yes.
Right. You're talking to her all the time of what you're up to. This would be one of the topics for discussion.
Quite possibly.
Now, if we look at Exhibit 148 for a second. Now, this is an agreement that's signed at the bottom by Mr. Brown, Jared Brown, who incorporated WCD.
Yes.
And this was an earlier offer that was presented. We heard some evidence about it yesterday. I take it that you were aware of the contents of this offer?
Yes.
And did you give instructions with respect to the price that was going to be offered?
I believe so.
And can we find the date of this offer? I think it's at the bottom. I understand that it's
2005 somewhere.
March 21st of 2005.
What number is this again?
148, Commissioner.
Page 7.
Page 7, thanks. Can we advance it to page 7, or we just put the, there we go. So Mr. Brown has signed on behalf of World Class, March the 21st, 2005.
Yes.
He is the lawyer who was involved in the incorporation.
Correct.
And for the time being, he's the shareholder, I take it.
Yes.
Now, can we pull up Exhibit 261? So going in the middle of the page there, I think this follows on from what you've said. For your information, hi Fred, it says, Paul Haggis at OMERS. For your information, I had a rather spirited talk with your worship yesterday. I take it that's not out of character for your mother to have a spirited talk with somebody?
No.
About some land that Oxford has at Square One. She is not happy that Michael Latimer is not selling the land to her preferred group. Again, the group at that point involves you and involves Murray Cook.
And Leo Cooper.
And Leo Cooper. And then at the end of that paragraph, although I did suggest, she says, I should give the whole thing to Michael Nobrega, who of course could do no wrong as far as she's concerned. I take it that meets with your understanding that your mother and Mr. Nobrega have a good relationship?
I believe so.
Right? I think I did a pretty good job of keeping my cool. I did suggest that threatening me was not a good idea. There's some allowance for color here, but did your mother tell you that she had these spirited conversations with...
Not that I'm aware of, no.
No, you have no recollection of that?
No.
Okay. Now, moving ahead, let's pull up Exhibit 189. So by this point, Mr. Cook has made an offer which has started the ball rolling to build a 5-star hotel.
I believe it was 4-star.
Well, let's Okay, let's go to Exhibit 260 for a second. So this is, have you seen this one before, December 12, 2005? This is the offer signed by Mr. Cook to Ron Petticourt.
Okay, I don't remember seeing it specifically.
So the third paragraph there, we'd originally proposed the freehold purchases of 3 parcels, one for a 5-star hotel.
Okay.
Right, and then appreciating that things morph, it becomes 2 parcels of land and a 4-star hotel.
Correct.
Okay, so let's look at Exhibit 189. So, Mr. Gover took you to this one. The agreement of purchase and sale is executed when relative to this? Is it January the 31st?
I believe, yes.
And Mr. Couprie, if we look at the passage here, is agreeing to lend the sum of $750,000. But then the triggering event in the next paragraph appears to be that upon World Class Developments obtaining a financial partner, the principal loan amount will be repaid. So $750,000 will go back to him, and an additional $750,000.
Correct.
Right. So Mr. Couprie is going to take some risk in this project, but if a big financier is found, he gets a pretty good reward.
Correct.
He can double his money. He might double his money in 12 months.
Yes.
And then the agreement appears to contemplate the notion that the share is going to be held in trust. This condition, this is the third paragraph, this condition will remain whether the shares of World Class Development Limited are held in trust or not by the lender. You see that?
Which is the third paragraph?
The lender retains the exclusive right. You see that one?
Oh, yes, yes.
And so you see there that there's a notion that the shares may be held in trust.
Yes, I see that.
And then there's also an agreement that security can be placed.
Yes.
Now, we've heard a bit about the setting in which this was witnessed. It was witnessed by your mother
Yes.
at dinner.
At dinner.
On the eve of both the agreement of purchase and sale being signed? Not quite the
no,
eve,
whatever the date is on this agreement.
but around that time.
It's around that time.
It's been a long negotiation and it's come to fruition.
Yep.
And it's also on the eve of you and Mr. Couprie traveling to Asia?
Yep.
And is it to China at this time or to somewhere else?
I think it was Vietnam, Thailand, and China.
Right, so a longish trip, I take it.
10 days.
And this is at Pier 4 on the waterfront?
Yes.
I'm not all that familiar with waterfront restaurants. Is this like a dark one or a light one, or?
It tends to be dark.
Tends to be dark. And so there's you and your mother and Mr. Couprie, and you need a witness. And so your mother agrees that she will be the witness.
Yes.
But you've told us that Mr. Couprie's wife is also there.
Yes.
Right, so she could have been the witness as well.
Could have been.
Right. And if you carry on to Exhibit 190, this is the Declaration of Trust. Mr. Gover has reviewed this with you, but essentially Mr. Couprie agrees that he will not deal with the property except to transfer it to you, so the shares he can't dispose of to anybody else except to you, and he's holding 80% of them in trust.
Yes.
And then there's a provision about the deposit. And once again, your mother is the witness for this document.
Correct.